It works. Hello. Thank you all so much for coming. I'm Jess McDaniel from Connect Milton, and we're so glad you're here. This is our second annual Town Government 101, and we have some really exciting, fun people here to talk to you about how to run for town government and how to get involved. Because Connect Milton, as you can see from this slide up here, we say welcoming all, sharing resources, and building community. So this is a part of the sharing resources. Our mission statement is defined by fostering community connection centered around diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and civic engagement. And we always say we're connecting Milton residents to each other, to civic engagement opportunities, and to community resources. So this is the civic engagement opportunities bullet in that. So I'm going to pass this off to, do we click this to make it go to the next slide?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Scott's going to take it over, I think, right? Yeah, okay. I'm passing to Scott. There we go, that's our mission. And then this is what we're doing today. Oh, you want to explain? Okay. This is what we're doing. Do you want to do this?
No.
Okay. This is what we're doing today. It's going to be brief. Town government primer, pick your pronunciation. We're going to have a panel discussion with our fabulous panel right here. And then we'll do a Q&A at the end for any questions that people have. And take it away, Scott.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Scott Matthews. I'm here mostly to, well, is it on?
Yeah.
Better? No?
You just have to get really close. It's on.
How's that?
Yeah.
That's right. Okay. So, as mentioned, we're going to have a discussion about town government, a little bit about a brief explanation of our town government, and a little explanation about how you can be involved. So our government is divided into multiple places, as you see in multiple governments, where there's our town government is divided up into a series of sections that you see in just our overall government. Anywhere there's an executive branch, which is our select board, and there's also a legislation branch, which is our town meeting. A lot of these slides are going to be about town meeting because that's what I know a little bit more about, and then we'll lead you into other parts with the panel discussion. So the responsibility of town meeting, it works. I always relate it to working kind of like a mini Congress here, where the budget and the bylaws that are voted on cannot be passed without getting voted on in town meeting. What we vote on is collected in what's known as a warrant. Y'all may have seen it. I think over the last few years, to save money, we don't really send it out to everyone, but it is sent out digitally to everyone, so everyone has access to it. The warrant has a collection of articles which describe all the things that we're going to vote on. It might be the budget for the school, or the budget for the town, the budget for the fire department. It might be a few things from our planning board for things that are bylaws of, like zoning bylaws. All these things town meeting members will vote on, and hopefully to come to some agreement to pass it so that within the next fiscal year that we're good until the next town meeting comes up. And a lot of people here can correct me if I get anything wrong, hopefully I won't. So there are two forms of town meeting that are out there. There's an open town meeting and a representative town meeting. Open town meeting is if you're in a town where anybody in town can come and speak and vote on the issues. Our town meeting is a representative. So basically everybody here, when it comes to our election day, you'll vote on town meeting members to represent you in town meeting to vote as hopefully you see fit for the laws and the budget. So we have 10 precincts that divide up the town. As you can see from this map, and this might be a little old map, but they don't get updated that frequently. Each section, each precinct is varying size. So the representatives that you have in your precinct varies according to the population of your precinct. So in total, there's about 279 active town meeting members. I think is that 11?
So it changes from year to year, how
Okay.
many ex officios there are, so right now there's 5.
Thank you. See, helpful.
Could you repeat that?
So,
Could you repeat what
You
you
should
said?
have a microphone.
oh, sorry.
It's turned on, okay. Is it on?
I think this one.
It's on now. It's on now. So there's, right now, there's about 5 ex officios, and ex officios are appointed by virtue of their position. So as the town clerk, in our bylaws, it states that I'm an ex officio town meeting member. A state senator and state representative are also ex officios. Chairs of the planning board, library, Board of Health, they also are ex officios, as would be a warrant committee member. But if they're elected town meeting members, then by virtue of their election, they are elected town meeting members.
Thank you.
Sure.
So each year, each town meeting member serves for about 3 years, right? So each year, that staggers over time. So each year you're voting for somewhere between 6 and 10 town meeting members in your precinct to represent you. And that, of course, like I said, depended on how many members are represented in your precinct. So town meeting so our responsibilities are basically you get the warrant, you read the warrant as best you can to get an understanding of what the issues are. We get the warrant about 2 to 3 weeks or so before town meeting happens, so that's plenty of time to go through it. If you have questions, try to find an official to try to get those questions answered so that you come prepared. There's always also the ability to ask questions at town meeting, but we'll get to that a little later. And talk to your neighbors, because you're, as I said, as a town meeting member, you are representing your constituents. So as best as a town meeting member can, they get to know what the mindset is of their constituents so that they can better represent them. So we have one main town meeting every year. This year, I believe it's in May. So it's in the spring. That's where we vote on the budget and the bylaws for the next fiscal year, starting in July. So our term goes July to June, so that's when the budgets come in. There are the options of having special town meetings. So if something happens that we have to vote on something, like say the MBTA laws, where we had to vote on whether or not we were going to pass a certain bylaw, that came up because there was a time limit to it. So that was a special town meeting that came up. We also voted some years ago to have a town meeting scheduled for the fall, just so that we can catch up, but sometimes that doesn't happen because of time. So the town meetings, every night that you're in town meeting goes from about 7:30 to 10:30. You might run a little later if things are a little bit contentious. Hopefully it runs on time because you get tired. We meet in the auditorium of the high school. So the times that we meet and the dates we meet are restricted by any high school events. So it's usually about 3 nights a week that we can meet, because there might be some other events going on. So who's at town meeting? We usually have a full representation of our government. So you have our town moderator, who's helping to direct us to make sure that we're following the decorum of town meeting, that all the articles are going through and that we're tracking. We have our town council to be there for if there's any questions of, is this legal, is this right? They can give us, they can make sure that we're on par. Our town clerk is there. One of our tasks is to make sure that we are at quorum, which means we have to have at least more than 50% of town meeting members, or else that town meeting can't happen. And it's the same thing with any of our committees that you see. Like, the select board, if there's 2 people there, we can't have a select board because we're not at quorum. And then various members of some of the other committees, like the select board, school committee, warrant committee, planning board, and of course, all the town meeting members. And we have here that also residents of Milton can attend. It's open for anyone, just like any of our meetings in town. One restriction though is that only town meeting members have an open invitation, an open ability to speak to articles. And like sometimes people get up to sway other members to ask questions. Our residents of Milton who are not town meeting members can't just get up and speak, but there is the option to reach out to the moderator ahead of time to ask for permission to speak, whether it's like a presentation that they might have that they think affects them and they want to help give better context to the body. So this is what it looks like. For anyone who hasn't been in the auditorium, this is where we are. So you can see there are different stations for everyone. The moderator's up there on the left, the clerk is on the right, the warrant committee members are in the front. And a little fact that when we're voting on our warrants, we're not exactly voting on the warrant, we're voting on the suggestions of the warrant committee. So they say, you should vote yes, we're voting on whether or not we agree with that. Not so much exactly it can be a little confusing, but over time you get it. The moderator is there to help us guide through. And then all the town meeting members are spread out throughout the auditorium. We typically sit close as possible to the front. If you've ever been to the auditorium, there's a dividing line where there's an aisle, where there's the back and the front. Usually we'll sit up to the front so that we can know whoever's voting are town meeting members. Although it's less of an issue now that we have electronic voting, so we can push that button anywhere we are. And a little note here in the front when we come in, if there's a modification to some of the articles of the warrant, they'll be placed there so that we can peruse it while we're there to see what those changes are and be up to date. So, who can run for town meeting? You can run for town meeting. Anybody can run for town meeting. I often say that it's one of the lightest lifts of participation in our government there is, other than just attending some meeting, sure. But being a town meeting member, it's typically one block of meetings every year. You serve for 3 years, you have to read the warrant, and it's a lot, but you're there and you're being involved and you're getting to know really in depth what the inner workings of our town is. So it's a great intro to our town workings. So the town meeting, as well as many other committees, are recorded and televised. So on the Milton Public Access, either if you still have cable, there's a channel you can go there, or you can go to their website or their, I believe it's streaming more on their YouTube channel now. So anybody can have access to see what's going on and experience the same things that we do in town meeting. So that this is also about, in general, our government. So if you were interested in other offices, this is kind of the general sense of the terms that is expected. For the most part, all of them are about 3-year terms. You get voted in, you get 3 years until you're on the ballot again, if you choose to be on the ballot again. The anomalies there are like the trustee of the cemetery and the housing authority. Those are 5-year terms, but for the most part, they're all 2-year terms. So this year, our town election is on the 29th. So that's usually about a week or two before town meeting. So if you get elected for town meeting, you've got a small turnaround to get ready, or any other offices. And I'm going to dive through here, but I know you'll add more to it later. But if you're interested in running for any office, you can get your papers from Town Hall, nomination papers. You have to go around and get signatures of people either in your precinct if you're a town meeting member or across the town if it's a town-wide office to say, yes, we want to support this person to go in. For town-wide office, it's usually about 50 signatures that you have to get, but it's recommended you get more just in case there's someone has poor membership and they can't validate that they are truly a voter that's supporting it. And town meeting member, again, it's much easier. You just need 10, but might as well get 15 or more just to make sure that you can get in. There's a deadline for submitting those papers so that you can be on the ballot, which is March 11th. Get it after that, not automatically on the ballot. So if you're interested, know that date. And once you go out there, there's different ways to get your name out there. You want to make sure that people know you in order to, if you're really serious about getting in this office. And I think those are some things that we asked about other people who have run, and I'm just going to touch on that now. And that's it.
Hi everybody, my name is Camila Chaparro. I'm part of Connect Milton. I'm also a town meeting member, and I was actually here almost exactly 2 years ago for this exact session to learn how to run for office, and it was just the push I needed to actually go and do it. So I'm super excited to see so many people here tonight, and I hope some of you take the next step and get involved in some way. So we're gonna get into the panel discussion part of this session tonight. I'm gonna first have everybody who's sitting here just introduce themselves, your name and your current and or past roles in town government. So Kevin, if you would like to start.
All right, thank you. Hello, good. Kevin Donahue, I'm a town meeting member from Precinct 3. I am a former school committee member.
Hi again, Scott Matthews, town meeting member from Precinct 10. I'm also on the IT committee.
Beverly Ross Denny, town meeting member for Precinct 2 and former school committee member.
Carolyn Cahill, town meeting member, Precinct 1. I also served on the warrant committee and have helped in a couple of the town elections.
Katie Conlon, Precinct 3, town meeting member and former member of the warrant committee and the select board.
Hi, I'm Susan Galvin, I'm a town clerk, and I'm also, I was a town meeting member, and I'm a town meeting member ex officio.
And actually, Susan, we can hang on to that microphone. So the first question, thank you everybody for being here tonight. First question goes to Susan. And if you could just talk to the group about the role of the town clerk and how the town clerk can help people who are running for office.
So, the town clerk is in charge of running all the elections for the town, both federal, state, and local. In the local election, everything is done in the town clerk's office. So you would come into our office, we pull your papers, we give you a brief introduction. We would hope that you might know a little bit about the position that you're interested in. If you don't, we'll direct you to the resources to find out more information about that. Give you your papers, send you on your way. Ask that you bring them back by the deadline. It is a strict deadline at 5 o'clock. If it's not there and it's 1 minute after 5, unfortunately, we're gonna have to turn you away. And then once we get your papers, we certify those signatures. Provided you have the correct number of signatures, your name would go on the ballot. We print the ballots, and then we have early voting by mail now. Anybody who's interested in doing that, just a reminder, you do have to apply every year for that. So if you had applied for a vote by mail last year, you would have to reapply for this year. Applications are online on the town clerk's website, or you can come into the office and fill out an application. Then it comes election day, and people get out, vote. I always hope for a good turnout. On average, unfortunately, it's somewhere around 20 to 30%. But the way to drive that is candidates. Candidates drive who comes out to vote. And so when you're out there getting your signatures, it's a great way to engage with people and not only get yourself known, but to find out about those people. It is nerve-wracking going up to people that you don't know, but it's also a great way to introduce yourself, find out about people. You meet such great people out there, and to get involved. So election day comes, people come and cast their ballots, and then we announce the results. And thankfully for Milton Cable Access, it is televised. And town meeting is always the Monday after the election. So this year it'll be, I believe it's May 1st.
Perfect, thank you so much.
Sure.
So I'm just gonna ask you a few questions to the panel in general. Whoever feels that they'd like to jump in on a question, that'd be great. We'll try and move things along because there may be questions from the audience too. So the first question we'll start out with, so if someone wants to run for office, if they're thinking of running, what should be on their to-do list?
When I ran for school committee, that was my first time running for office, and I realized I didn't know anything. So I decided to call everyone that was in an elected position and ask them, what do you do? What are the issues that are important to you and what are you hearing? And what did you do in your campaign? And I called you. I spoke to you. It's, there's no shame in asking a question because you'd be surprised how helpful everyone is. They were very frank with what their campaigns took, how much money they raised, and after honestly talking to like the 10th person, you started hearing things over and over again, and there's a science to this, and it's worth every campaign because issues change, and constituents change as people come and go in Milton, but it's well worth having the conversation with the people that are sitting in these positions, as well as talking to your neighbors, families that you might meet at the grocery store, at the school, but at least starting with the people who are already in office is very helpful.
I'm sorry to interrupt for a moment. Does anyone drive a red Mercedes? You do, oh, sorry.
I guess what I would add to that is, we'll probably talk a little more about this in other questions, but once you decide you're going to run, and you have some ideas about what the issues are, what you want to campaign on, what you want to have for a platform, then you need to think about forming a committee. And you definitely need a treasurer. If you're going to run for town-wide office, and this is town-wide, it's a little bit different if it's town meeting, but if you're running for town-wide office, then one of the good practices I think most candidates do, and I did, was to form a key group of people who we met weekly at my house. And I think most candidates do that, especially as you get closer to the election. Sort of to plan out, you have to start thinking about advertising. You have to think about what your lawn signs are going to look like, what your message is going to be. Are you going to have a website or a Facebook page for the campaign? Strategy. Just starting to form who's going to do what for the campaign. And you do need a treasurer. You don't necessarily need to have anyone who has another title, but a treasurer is important. And your treasurer will have to make certain filings with the town clerk's office, and they're required at different times. We get into that a little bit more, but usually it's 8 days before the election and 30 days after the election. And then you have to file a year-end report, and you have to list all of your revenue that you've raised as well as all of your expenses. And a lot of candidates put in a lot of their own money to campaigns, so that's something to think about as well. Raising money for a contested race in particular, and what your budget is going to be and what's the best way to get your message out and to use those resources. But that's one of the other initial things, is to get a group of people who are going to be committed to working with you. It's really not a marathon, it's more of a sprint. Middle of March to election day in April, it's usually the busiest time and the most active time, but you want to start planning now in January, February timeframe and having those meetings and laying the groundwork.
And I'll just add, for anyone who's considering running for town meeting, so if you're new to Milton, the first thing you want to do is find out what precinct you're in. On the town website, it lists all your town meeting members in that precinct. So it's nice to look at that list, see if any of your neighbors are on it. Do you know anyone that you can reach out to? And then from there, you're going to start to, you'll get all your papers signed, as Scott mentioned, but from there, you're gonna wanna go around to your neighborhood and let people know you're running for town meeting. If there's a certain issue you feel is important to your neighborhood, you're gonna discuss that with your neighbors. Or ask them, what are the concerns that you have for our neighborhood? Because remember, that's what you're representing at town meeting. And I think a lot of people tend to get involved when something is going on in their neighborhood. So it's sometimes, a nice idea to get started. Get involved as soon as you can, to be honest.
And then, in addition to that, I would say having a frank conversation in your household about your time budget and what that would look like, both in the campaign season and after that, is going to be key. And as part of the conversations with people in the position that you're looking to run for, talking about time commitment and expectations, rough times of the meetings, and we can talk a little bit more about that specifically as the night goes on. But being realistic with yourself and your family and your friends about how much time you're going to be spending and what that's going to look like.
That's all super helpful. We talked a lot of different topics that we were going to cover this evening. I just want to come back to the issue for those thinking of townwide office about raising money. How do you do that? I think Katie mentioned that a lot of times it's personal money, but are there other sources of funding? How do people go about that when you're launching a campaign?
Sure, did you want to say something to the prior question?
So I just wanted to say, the last couple of years, town meeting has been very active. We've had multiple races, so town meeting members in the past probably weren't raising money or anything, but I've seen that there's been a lot of lawn signs, and they're very active now. So town meeting is just as active in getting your name out there in your precinct as a townwide.
And
okay. Will you just for running for town meeting member? Do we have to file with the state for that, or?
So if you're holding campaign and raising funds, yes,
Yeah.
you would.
Okay.
If you're self-funding, no.
No. Okay. Which is important for people
Right.
contemplating.
That's a good distinction. Thank you.
On the question about raising funds, so, and this is for a contested race where you're going to be spending some money and being very active campaigning. If you're likely to be in an uncontested race, then you don't have a lot of expenditures, so it's going to be a little bit different. But for raising money, often candidates will put in some money on their own at the beginning just to seed the campaign fund, and then often arrange a fundraiser. And sometimes it's a kickoff event for the campaign and invite friends and supporters and people who come to hear you. Some of them, maybe not all of them will donate, but a lot of them will usually donate if they're coming to a kickoff event or a fundraiser. There's limits on what the campaign contributions are, but you can get that information on the Town Clerk's page. But that's why it's important to have a treasurer who's going to accurately keep track of all of these the contributions and file them at the time that they have to be publicly reported. So that's a good way to do it. Then during the campaign, sometimes there are house parties that candidates have, and often some people set up a PayPal account. Other people just have an event where there might be checks that are delivered. But during the course of the campaign, usually there's multiple events for candidates, especially in a hotly contested race, and money is usually being contributed during the course of the campaign, and the treasurer is keeping good records and reporting that.
I also want to say you cannot collect any money until you have established a treasurer and opened up a bank account. If Katie told me today she was running and I wanted to give her a check, she hasn't submitted any paperwork. She can't accept that.
Another strategy that I found helpful was make a list of everybody that you know. You can do this when you're contemplating running for office because you're technically not collecting it, But as long as the person is a US citizen, they can donate. So I had friends that didn't live in Milton who contributed to my campaign. But if you don't ask, you don't get anything. So that really did help to seed my campaign before we started having house events. But literally, make a list of everyone you know, write a little blurb about why you're running and why this campaign is important, and ask. You'd be surprised what you'll get.
That's great. I want to bring it back to town meeting a little bit, because Susan mentioned that in recent years, town meeting has been pretty active and people are actively campaigning. So in the event that people here are interested in running in town meeting, what would you recommend that people do in terms of campaigning, and also do you need to set up, a platform, or how do you get your name out there? How do you tell people about yourself? What are your recommendations there? Particularly ones that won't necessarily cost a lot of money if you're not fundraising as when running for a town meeting member.
So I think one of the advantages of running for town meeting is like your distribution, the people that you're looking for is smaller than town-wide of like trying to go around the whole town. When I first ran many years ago, it was mostly going around to neighbors, knocking on the door, and it wasn't just getting my paper signed, it was just letting them know I'm running. And one of my neighbors kind of grilled me. He's like, so what exactly are you running for? I'm like, let me get back. So, just the simple thing of meeting your neighbors, and I think at that time it was like 4 of us running at the same time, so we got to split the name. We got to split it up and have all 4 of our names go at the same time. But just getting out there so they know who we are.
Yeah, and I'll just add that, other people are also going to advocate for you. So, kind of just going back to introducing yourself to town meeting members already in your precinct, reaching out to the people that you know. Everyone in Milton has friends in other parts of Milton, and so you don't know if you're running in precinct 1, Bev might have a whole handful of friends in precinct 1, and she's going to advocate, hopefully, for me.
So I'll say social media is helpful. It can be very helpful. A lot of your social networks are very helpful. Those tend to be relatively neighborhood based if you're running for town meeting. So if you have a neighborhood, group association, block party type thing, that's an excellent place or a mailing list or an email list to identify people and talk to them. There are obviously different political groups active in town. So if you are active in one of those, leveraging their activity in your precinct can be very helpful. Other different social groups that may be active are particularly helpful. And then walking your neighborhood, talking to people. It can be sort of high time intensity, sort of going around door to door and introducing yourself and making small talk, but that sort of person-to-person conversation tends to be very helpful. Also reminding people when the election is, because as Sue mentioned, turnout can be a little bit on the lower side depending on what's going on across town. So reminding people that it's in 2 weeks on Tuesday, it's in 3 weeks on Tuesday, it's next Tuesday, it's tomorrow. Please come out and support me. Small handouts with you, a couple bullet points about yourself, some of the things that you're running on that are of a size that somebody could easily take them to the polls to help remember your name. Those are all excellent. Some of my tips for running for a town meeting, and some things that I found have been very helpful in the past.
I would also just add in there that you can put announcements in the Milton Times, so that's another way to get your name out there in town. So one thing that I used as well. Great. So now sort of moving on to the experience of serving. how did you find that experience of participating in town government? Like, what are some of the things you really liked? Maybe some of the things you didn't expect. Let's talk a little bit about like the actual act of being in town meeting, or being on the warrant committee, or being on the select board.
Hold the mic, so I'll go first. I'll admit that there's times at town meeting can be very frustrating in terms of seeing things going that seem like it doesn't make sense. But I think I get a kick out of being part of town meeting, because even though there are times where I might think one way on an issue, and hearing other people talking about it gives a bit more information that I didn't have before, and might help me sway a little bit the other way, right? So I think there's validity in the discourse that we have at town meeting in terms of hearing everything. There's frustration when there sounds like people aren't listening to everyone. So I encourage, when you do go to town meeting, if you're in there, actually listen and actually take part in thinking that, oh, I might be wrong, instead of I am right, so I'm going to convince everybody I'm right. Those are my two joys of this.
I think in terms of serving, if you're running really for the right reason, because you want to give something back to the community or you want to make a contribution, there's a lot of opportunities serving either as a town meeting member or as in a townwide office to do that, and to finish out your term, and whether it's one or more terms, and feel that you've made a contribution and you've given something back to the community. It's also fun. It's a lot of people really enjoy serving and taking part. I will echo what Kevin said at the beginning, that it's a big time commitment, especially in a townwide office. You get a lot of emails, you get a lot of phone calls, there can be a lot of contentious issues, but at the end of the day, you feel as though you've accomplished something if you've served, and you've put in the time and the effort that it takes really to serve, and to serve well in the role, and to do your homework. But it should be viewed in that sense that you have family commitments, everyone has work commitments and other commitments, but if you are going to serve on one of the elected boards, you need to set aside the time and commit to it being prepared for the fact that it's going to take a lot of your effort and a lot of your time, and but it will be worth it, because you leave it feeling rewarded that you've given something back and you've made a positive contribution in some way. So a lot of people said make it fun, and serving on the select board, you get an opportunity to go to a lot of different events, represent the town at different events. There's also a statewide organization, the Mass Municipal Association, that I was very involved in when I was on the select board. And that was a great way to connect with a lot of people in other communities across the state who are serving on their boards, and a good way to share ideas. So there's a lot of opportunities if you are serving townwide, a lot of educational opportunities and ways to learn, and to learn from each other, and hopefully to work collaboratively with some of the other boards that you come across on different issues.
I can speak briefly just about serving on the warrant committee. So the warrant committee is not, you don't run for that position. The town moderator elects or selects people to run for that seat. And I believe warrant committee is about 15 members. And I served on the warrant committee for 4 years. They usually ask that you serve 3, because year 1 you're starting to kind of learn the role, and then by year 2 you're more engaged, and by year 3 usually you're heading some subcommittee. But the warrant committee really is the finance committee for the town. So you're reviewing all budgets that come forward from each department, and then you're also reviewing any zoning bylaws, any changes, or and so sometimes for the planning board or the select board, it's a way for them to present something that they want to have go to town meeting. And they kind of get feedback from the warrant committee on, well, this doesn't really make sense to us, and it's a little bit of an open discussion. And I feel like I met so many amazing people serving on the warrant committee, and I would highly, highly recommend getting involved there if you have an interest. And I guess that's anything else that, yeah.
So I would like to just say that it's truly an honor when you are elected to serve for somebody or for the residents of the community. I have thoroughly enjoyed, and that's not to say that I don't have bad days, but I thoroughly enjoy helping all the wonderful members in our community. And, you know, on most days, they walk away, I hope, satisfied. And it's truly a great feeling when you can serve the community. And unlike most of the other positions, mine's a full-time job as well. But I still am so honored that I get to work with every single resident and committee member. It's really a blessing.
Thank you so much. One last question. So maybe you're not quite ready to run for office. What are other ways that you can get involved in town government? What are other committees or volunteer positions?
So I think it wasn't represented up there, but I think a lot of our government is run not just by our larger boards like the school board or the select board, but all the committees that we have that they're almost like little consulting groups that we bring up to basically help run our town. Let's say our fire station committee that was involved in the planning and the raising money of building our new fire station. We have a town, like a bylaw review committee of making sure that we're serving across on our town website. There's a list of all these committees. There's also a sign-up sheet, and like was mentioned before, the moderator. Well, most of them are picked by the moderator. There are also some that are select board committees that all serve like a great purpose in terms of making sure that our town runs efficiently and progresses to a point that, well, we're not in a stone age. So,
Thank you. I want to echo something Carolyn said about the warrant committee. I spent 5 years on the warrant committee, and I don't know that I would have run for townwide office if I hadn't served on the warrant committee, because that's really excellent training and a great way to learn. And it used to be more so, and hopefully it will continue to be, the kind of a stepping stone for people to first go to the warrant committee, get some experience there. Spend, as Carolyn said, first year is a learning experience. Second and third year, you have a lot more understanding of the budget, you know who all the players are, you interact with all the boards and town department heads who do the work. Like Susan said, you know, she's elected, but most of them are appointed, and they all work very hard, and we have great staff at Town Hall, so we're lucky as residents to have some really wonderful people working at Town Hall. But serving on the warrant committee introduces you to the budget, introduces you to what the different boards and committees do. And whenever anyone asks me about running for either town meeting or serving some way in town government, I always encourage them to reach out to the moderator and ask for consideration to be appointed to the warrant committee. There's 15 seats, and every year about a third of the warrant committee turns over, at least that's been the precedent. But it's a really good way to learn, and a lot of people who have served on select board, school committee, moderator, have gone through several years on the warrant committee, and I always think that's excellent training. But some of the other appointed boards, you know, there's other ways that you can serve, and there's some that are issue specific. You know, like the Affordable Housing Trust that I'm currently serving on, that's an appointed board, but it's a good way to work on certain issues. So warrant committee is in particular, I think, is really excellent training, but there are others that deal with specific issues and would be very helpful if you eventually wanted to run for office, and then come into that office knowing a lot about the budget and about how town government works.
Thank you so much. I want to open it up for questions from the audience. If there's questions that we haven't asked. Do we have a?
Did this cause problems?
I couldn't figure out how to turn it on.
I think you're supposed to hold it, but
We good? Yeah, okay.
Oh.
All right, questions?
Hello. Hello. Hi, I'm Deborah Milbauer. This is awesome, you guys. Thank you. I also want to add, for those of you new to town, you can watch all of the meetings on Milton Access TV. So if this is all gobbledygook, hi guys, the ones who are filming right now, they're amazing. And they have a YouTube channel, and you could just go and watch a meeting, and all of them are recorded and posted. Even warrant committee's not elected, but that's recorded. A lot of them are recorded even if it's not elected. So I highly recommend that. And then my question is, can you remind us, so the cap for individual donation on a campaign is what?
So for an individual, I believe it's 500, I'd have to double check, in a year. And then, is it 1,000 now? Okay. Like I said, I would have to double check, but it all listed in the, on the paperwork in the finance.
Anyone else?
I thought that was very helpful. No? Hello? Oh, I thought that was a very helpful thought, Deborah. Another thing I was gonna say too, as a reminder to people, because Katie, you were having me think about the warrant committee. There are also other appointed committees. So in addition to being on the warrant committee, I'm also on the cultural council. So you can go on the you can go on the wonderful Milton Town website, and there are a lot of openings. So if you go and maybe you're not ready for being elected yet, but you think you might want to get more involved in the town, there are a lot of groups like that. So the cultural council is appointed by the select board, and things like that. So you can definitely get involved in that way. Thanks.
Any other questions for the panel? Oh, there's a few hands.
There we go.
How do you know what's available to run for and what's not?
So the list is on the Town Clerk's website under the 2025 election, and it's broken down by town-wide offices and how many seats are available for town meeting. And then in addition, weekly, I post who has pulled papers and who has returned them.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for hosting this. My name is Naima Joseph. I think I live in Precinct 7, East Milton. I'm recently moved. I just had a question about, my understanding, it seems like, is that legislation is passed through warrants. And so how are those proposed? Can community members suggest warrants? And how do you do that?
So if citizens have something that they want to go on the warrant, they can write a citizen's petition, and then circulate it, depending upon if it's going for a town meeting or annual town meeting or a special town meeting. You type it up, pass it around to the town-wide citizens, registered voters, have for an annual election 10 signatures, for a special election 100 signatures, turn it into the select board's office, and then in a timely fashion, and then it would go on the warrant.
Can I add to that?
Absolutely.
Can I? Yeah. I'm going to add to that. Another way to get something on the warrant is I went to before the select board with an idea, and I asked them to maybe sponsor it, and they did. And it eventually passed, and it was really exciting.
most of the articles that are in the warrants come from elected boards, or the budget, every department generally has a budget article every year in the annual warrant, so those carry forward year to year, but, zoning articles usually put forward by the planning board. Other elected or appointed boards could submit a warrant article. The select board puts a lot of them forward, but as Susan said, there are avenues for citizens.
Any other questions? Oh, go ahead.
The other thing that I wanted to mention is it just
No one can turn off.
the other thing is that I wanted to mention in terms of civic engagement and such, I think all of the boards, if I'm correct, have the beginning of the meeting a citizen speak where you can go and you get several minutes. So I don't know if anybody wants to explain that more fully, but that's a great one for folks to know.
Most of the elected boards anyway have citizen speak or public comment, and usually it's a set period of time at the beginning of the meeting. There's a court decision a few years ago that forced to really pay close attention to the time to make sure everybody has equal time. But I think the select board currently does 21 minutes, 3 minutes per person, but any resident of the town can then come in, raise an issue or just bring an idea to the elected board's attention. And they don't normally respond to it at that time, but it's just a good way to communicate information.
Yeah, those are the citizens speak is an excellent way to communicate with the boards if you're looking to give them ideas or put something on the record in front of them. I'll also say that since we have a little lull here, one of the bits of advice that I wanted to give people are, if you're looking to run town-wide, one of the best pieces of advice that I got that I thought was very helpful was to attend the meetings for the board or that you're looking to become a part of. Because there are a lot of active issues politically in town. We could probably name 2 or 3 in our board of preference if we're thinking about running for something. But there's a lot that is sort of below the surface that they deal with that are not those issues that make the front or even the back page of the paper that you're going to need to be somewhat competent dealing with when you're successful and you get elected. And it's going to be very helpful if you start to attend those meetings and you're sort of up to speed on them by May when you are elected and you're on the board, and now you know sort of the backstory of what's been going on for the past few months on this 3rd or 4th tier issue that's still pretty important town-wide, but that doesn't generate a lot of the headlines that we read. So I would suggest going to these meetings.
And just adding on to that, one of the things that I think is really important as anyone who's considering townwide office, to understand that there are different constituencies in this town. And certain things mean very much to one group, and it may not to another constituency. But if you do identify an issue where your values align with that constituents group, inspire them. Take the time to get to know what matters and talk to people about it in a way that reflects that it's important to you and that you understand the issue. You don't have to scare people. You don't have to insult people. You can actually inspire them by telling them that it's important to you, that you've heard them, and that you have a solution or you're going to advocate for them. But understand that there's usually not one issue that inspires everybody, because as I said, there's different constituency groups. But if you don't take the time to get to know people and listen to them, you won't. And going to those meetings, talking to people who've been elected before, is just one step in that process.
I think I'd add to that, there's the flip side to it. Like, you're an elected member and you want to inspire your constituents, but if you're a constituent, you want to inspire your elected member to understand the importance of this effect. I know my old neighborhood, there was quite a few things that's come up over the last few years where people rallied around to reach out to town meeting members and said, look, this is really important to us, this is why, give them as much information as they could, so that they were armed and prepared to speak, since they're the ones who can't speak and vote.
Great, so we're just about 8 o'clock, so I just wanna make sure there aren't any other burning questions out there about town government or running for office. And I wanna say thank you very much to our panel members, this was extremely helpful. And thank you to everybody who's here in the audience who came and joined us tonight. Just wanna make sure if you haven't picked up one of our flyers, I know there's a lot of information tonight. It's all on those handouts right there. We have an overview of town government in Milton, so you didn't even have to take notes. And on the back, other ways to get engaged. So some of these suggestions from our panel members about other positions or going to meetings and talking at Citizen Speak. So please grab one of those on your way out, and thank you again.
Three, two, one. Here we go!